Yo YouTube, this is my video for Monday the 10th of March, and I'm on the road and I'm doing a job which has incorporated a new tactic that I've started to employ. You may or may not have had a video explaining my thinking around this. I'm deciding yet whether to publish it, but even if I don't publish it, yeah, it'll still make sense. So I didn't have a job booked in from last week for today. I was looking at jobs from around about 7 o'clock, and there wasn't very much. There was a bid I had on from Friday that was still on. Yeah, interestingly, it said, I don't know whether you know anything about this, so I'll ask the community generally. It asked for a small van, but then said must be curtain side, and I thought that must be an error. I can't imagine any small van having a curtain side. I've never seen one, and so I assumed it was there, so I put a bid on anyway. I haven't got a curtain side, but I have got a side door that's big enough to take anything that a small van can take if it was a curtain side. So anyway, I put the bid on, didn't get it. I was going to be intrigued to get offered it and then asked, what do you really need a curtain side small van? I mean, knowing the quality of people that work for shippers, I imagine it's a mistake rather than actually a real thing. But you never know, do you? Life can throw up a lot of differences that you don't come across usually. And I was thinking, oh, maybe it's an example of the only thing I can think of where you might need a curtain-sized small van, if it existed, of course, which I don't think it does, is if you were going to offload or load to an area with a restricted height, but the pallet itself was quite tall. So that is possible. So it might be that's the only explanation I can think of as to why that would be actually needed. And if so that's but whether that is the case, I can't imagine that would be the case. I can't imagine anywhere where you would never be able to get so there's maybe even a medium-sized van in to load or unload. Anyway, moving on. There was a couple of things I bid on today that I didn't get that were local to me. So localish, Lincoln and Newark. They're both an hour away from me, and I didn't get those jobs, but they were going quite long distances, which I liked. Actually, no, the Lincoln one was going back to Peterborough, but it was so I put a high price on because it wouldn't have got me very far, but it would have been worth going out for the start. And the Newark one was going somewhere like Runcorn, I think, which would have been really good. So one of the things that I have changed about a week ago in an effort to do this job slightly differently is I've expanded my search area from home from the usual 30 miles to the maximum of 50 miles. So if you go in the CX desktop and go up to your profile and notifications, you put in your home area, and then there's an area you can choose in which to search for jobs. Now I've always had it at 30 miles, which I thought was standard. I now realise, as I'm saying this to you, I chose 30 miles when I first set up CX, and I could have chosen anything at that point. So actually, there's no standard thing. It's my what I'm used to. So anyway, I changed it to 50 miles, which brought in a lot wider area, obviously, and a lot more work, but not work that was close to me. And I did that for a couple of reasons. It brought into my search area Nottingham and Newark, which, if I had the right job, let's say it was Nottingham to Scotland, I would do that job because it's a long distance. So I'd want to have it on my feed. But most Nottingham jobs are quite local to Nottingham, and I can't really bid on them. But Newark's a bit closer. Newark is an hour from me, That's a bit. Newark is equivalent to me of Lincoln, and I find Lincoln to be a really good source of work because there's very few drivers based in and around Lincoln. And so, although it's an hour from me, I've been on quite a lot of work out of Lincoln. I do bid a bit higher because I'm an hour away, and sometimes I get it, and sometimes I don't. But I would say that that's a bit of an unknown gem of an area. I wouldn't say that I would aim for the Lincoln in the day. What I mean is, if you're going to be based somewhere and you want a better chance than average of getting a job off the CX, Lincoln would be a good place to be based, in my view. Because it brings into view also Humberside, which is a bit quieter, and also it brings in, it's very close to sort of the East Coast there, Lincolnshire East Coast, which is so sparse of drivers. There is a couple of drivers that are based sort of Skegness and Spilsby and around there, Gainsborough. But there's not a lot. And if those drivers get a job in the morning, then suddenly all the jobs there are left for people that are based a bit further away. So that's the first thing. It brought in the north of me a bit of a wider area. But the second thing, off my experience from last week, I thought I'd bring into my search area the west of Norfolk. Now at the moment I already have Kings Lynn in my sights, but I'm now done the search so that it brings in up to 50 miles into Norfolk. And so for morning jobs, I'm thinking again there may be less drivers available in the morning, and if I can get there in time, or if they're prepared to wait, then that's good to have that little extra bit of niche coverage. And so that would cover for me Swaffham, Fakenham, Thetford, maybe go even as far as Hunstanton, which is possibly a bit too far, but I don't know Hunstanton in terms of drivers at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's very few, no drivers based in Hunstanton. So it might just be that there's a long wheelbase job in Hunstanton that is worth the hour and 3/4 drive. Anyway, so that's what I've done as a change about a week ago, and in a consistent effort to try and widen my opportunities to win a job in the morning, specifically. And today that did pay off, because a job came up from Thetford going to Derby, and I thought I would bid on that a little bit cheaper than my usual bid, but I thought a fair price. And this is my rationale. In my favour, there's probably not a lot of drivers available to pick up a load from Thetford. I don't know to be sure, but there's probably less drivers than there would be, say, in Peterborough. In my favour, it's going to a really good area, Derby. And in my favour, it's a long wheelbase van job, therefore I can put a bit more than £1 a mile on and make it worth my while. Against me, there were two factors that I had in mind. First of all, I'm an hour and 40 odd minutes away from the pickup, and it needed to be picked up an hour and 10 minutes from when I put the bid on. So technically speaking, I couldn't get there in time. And so usually I wouldn't even bother bidding. But my new way of working, rebel without a cause type, let's summarize it as that, is I'm kind of breaking these social norms a bit. And I put a bid on, but I did put a note on saying I was 90 minutes away. And so I said, well, so I thought if I get a call, I can just explain how far away I am, and they can either deny me the job or give me the job. And then the second thing that's not in my favour, which is ongoing, and this is for all drivers, is the general level of pricing at the moment is quite low. So I didn't feel I could go too high with my pricing, because it's just, at the moment at least, and maybe for the foreseeable future, the pricing is being depressed for drivers over what we can really afford to do the job for, what we should do the job for, what we're valued at doing the job for. So I chose to put a bid on based on those 5 factors. I chose to put a bid on of £1.10 a mile, and it was 125 miles from Thetford to Derby. and then plus my 52 miles to get to Thetford, and that came up to 140 was my bid. And quite quickly, within about sort of 5 minutes, I got a call, I was offered the job, and I said to them, "You're aware that I'm going to be not there for at least an hour and a half?" And they said, "That's fine." And then she said the phrase, which I'd never heard before, "It's an open pickup." So, although the job was posted for an hour window, actually, and it was an ASAP job, actually, it didn't have a specific time to pick it up. And I found that really interesting, because I never even thought about these jobs having open pickup times. And that makes sense now as to why you get jobs reposted. Because I always wondered, how can a shipper post a job that needs to be picked up within an hour and then repost it every 10 minutes, giving an hour slot again. So by the end of an hour, it's going to be an hour late from the original posting. And obviously that's because some of these jobs don't have specific pickup times. Anyway, so all's well so far. I've got a job at a fair price. I'm going to get to the job on time by definition. Whatever time I get there, it is on time. The only way I can be late to this job if I don't turn up. Or if I don't turn up today, let's put it that way. Or this morning, maybe. So there's no pressure on time. The lady changed the booking on my CX to 10 o'clock pickup. I'm going to get there by 9:45. So that's good. And the positive side of this now that I've got the job at price I think is fair, so that knocks out the two negatives I mentioned before. Now it's all gravy, it's all positive. I'm going to end up in Derby at about 12:30. I'm going to have half of my day's wages paid already. It's going to be a good area, and I should be able to make my target gross earnings today. I say that now, but I often realise that my morning positivity is often dashed on the CX rocks of despair. But let's stay positive. Let's get this job done, and I'm going to look forward to seeing what it's like in Derby at midday. Hi YouTube. So I've just picked up my load from Thetford, and I should be in Derby for about 12:15. It's 125 miles from where I am, so 1 mile more than CX. Oh no, same as CX says, 125. And I'm really pleased with this job, and I'm doubly pleased because of general incompetence on the shipper's behalf. So last week I had a situation where the general incompetence of a shipper caused me an hour's delay and was quite aggravating. But there are occasions, particularly for long wheelbase van drivers, where the general incompetence of a shipper can go to your advantage. And today that was an example. So I bid low for a long wheelbase van job. I bid £1.10 a mile, and it was low because I wanted to win the job if possible, but also it's low because I was 50 miles away from the pickup. And if it had been advertised as, say, a medium van job or a short wheelbase or even a small van job, I would have felt obliged to charge probably no more than £1 a mile. If it was a small van job, I probably wouldn't even bother risking the bid, which is a lesson I need to learn, because in this particular case I'm taking €1 pallet, which isn't very heavy. We could move it, well, the guy that put it on with the forklift put it on at an angle and then came on and pushed it on, so it wasn't that heavy at all. And secondly, it wasn't that high, it's probably about half a metre high. So I cannot see any reason why this could not have gone on a small van. Now obviously I don't know why shippers don't know the dimensions of the load that they're selling jobs for. I'm sure they've got a really good reason for not bothering to find out, or not knowing, or maybe there's some flexibility in it sometimes. But when they advertise it as a long wheelbase van load, I will start bidding on that work. Otherwise I wouldn't do if it was a short van work, 50 miles away. And I'm getting a really good price now, even including my dead miles to get to Thetford, for effectively a small van job. So I'm really pleased. Just as a slight kind of additional information, obviously, I think it's obvious, the size of the load is irrelevant to me as a driver, as long as it fits on my van. I'll take an envelope for £1.10 a mile, or I'll take 3 standard pallets for £1.10 a mile, if I can get it. So I don't care less what the size of the load is. I care more about how far am I driving and how long will it take. Whereas the disconnect in this industry is that the shippers tend to price work for their customers based on the size of the vehicle and the mileage that it's going. And so there's a pricing structure in logistics where the customer is paying for one set of factors, but the drivers are concerned about a slightly different set of factors. And I did find that a bit strange. And also, so that's the first point, and if a shipper works on the size of vehicle required to take the load as being their primary concern about how to price a job, then why aren't they more concerned about the dimensions and the quantity of the loads? I think some shippers definitely are, and this is to reiterate my previous message from last week, how some shippers are different to others. But quite a lot of shippers, I think, just go with a guesstimate, or just go with what their customers tell them without delving any further. And fair enough, if that's going to be the way they're going to work, drivers like myself will take what little comfort we can from the advantage we get. So I'm not going to complain about it. It's just the slight upside of the general negative downside of general incompetence that you get. Okay, I will speak to you later. Cheers. Hello YouTube. It is now 22:12 and I'm still 40 minutes away from offloading my first job of the day. Let me tell you what I'm going to do next, because I've now got my next job booked in. So I've got the one pallet to offload, and I'll be arriving on site at about 12:20. And then I've got a job from Castle Donington going to Leicester, a long wheelbase van job, collecting at 1 o'clock, and it's a way to return, bringing back some empty pallets. And I have bid £60. The loaded miles in one direction is 23, so it's probably about 46 miles there and back. And the dead miles, I don't know for sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be about 1 or 2, because I'm actually going to Castle Donington for my drop-off. It's a DE74 postcode. So what I have managed to do is I've looked ahead. From when I was an hour away from my drop-off, I started looking through the CX, and I put some bids on, and I just went with a competitive bid, knowing I'd be there easily in time, and I was reasonably confident I would get it. £60 for a long wheelbase van job, wait and return. And I'm going to end up, probably I would say it will take me about an hour, no more than an hour and a half to do that job, and then I'll be back in Castle Donington around about 2:30. So £60 the richer, and still in a good area. So off the back of that job, I will be on £200, I think, net, so £200 gross. And so another couple of little jobs or one big job will make my day from there. So far, so good. and I will get to the pickup point as early as I can and just say to them, no pressure, but I'm here when you're ready. And I might even get out offsite a bit earlier. Obviously I'll let you know if that happens. Okay, it's now 20 past 1. I've now picked up my load. It's a way to return to Leicester and back to Castle Donington. And I had to wait for a bit of time. I arrived at about 10 to 1, which is about 10 minutes, maybe a bit less than 10 minutes early, and they were on a break. So then at about 5 past 1, I then got seen to, and by the time they loaded me up, it was 20 past. So not really much of a delay, I'm not worried about that. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about a health update, at least to the extent that I'm prepared to share at the moment. Eventually you'll hear about everything, but at the moment this is all I'm going to say. So Wednesday this week, in the morning at least, I can't work, which is a shame, because I have a consultation in preparation for an operation that I'm having at the start of April. And then on Thursday, before my dialysis, I have another scan, but this one's just a check-up on my fistula, so that shouldn't be anything nothing much should change off the back of that. But what I can tell you about is a brand new diagnosis, and I need to go back to October of last year to explain about this. So around about October last year, I put in an application for personal independence payments. That's PIP, which is to help people who are struggling with health conditions, and it's a benefit that helps people to pay for the expenses and the care associated with those health conditions. Now, PIP is not means tested, so it doesn't matter how much you've got in savings. All that matters is, do you have qualifying health issues, and if you do, you get some money. If you don't, you don't. And at the start of that process, I had to think very carefully about all the physical health problems that I was experiencing, and some of it was stuff that I hadn't really twigged. And one of those things was that my partner said to me that not only do I snore, in brackets, as does she, close brackets, but also that she noticed that at times I stopped breathing for short times, and that is known as sleep apnea. And so off the back of that, I went and did a referral through my GP to see if I could have a diagnosis to confirm whether I have or haven't got that. And that was a bit of a drawn out process. I had to fill out a form, return it to the GP. The GP had to decide if they were going to make a referral. In this case, they did make a referral. I had to wait a few weeks, as is usually the case, and then I got contacted by the local sleep clinic, and initially they sent me out a monitoring kit to wear during a night's sleep, just to see whether there was any issue, and that was returned. That was quite a good process. That was given to me in the post and returned in the post the following day. So that, after the first one didn't work, the second one did work, but they were all very good about supporting me through that process. And then that went off to the local consultant based in Boston, and the result of that was I was then diagnosed with moderate obstructive sleep apnea. There might be a syndrome as well. So it might be a syndrome. So what does that mean? Okay, sleep apnea can be caused by a physical problem, and that's why it's called obstructive, or it can be caused by a brain problem, which I think it's called communication sleep apnea, or it'd be with C anyway, so it'll be with C. But I have the obstructive sleep apnea, but I have a mild version rather than a severe version. And they measure mild or severe by the number of apneas that you have during the day, during the night. An apnea is where your airway closes when you're asleep. Well, sleep apnea is it happens when you're asleep. An apnea can happen, I suppose, at any time. So we're talking about when I'm sleeping. So sleep apnea is where your airways close up, and that can be down to just getting older, and it can be down to, so that therefore it could be a bit genetic, and it can be down to carrying extra weight on your body. And I'm pretty sure in my case it's because of my extra weight. So what I'm hoping is that if I can lose my weight, my sleep apnea, my obstructive sleep apnea might go. But in the interim, the consultant who does his appointments by telephone, and the treatment that I have been prescribed is a CPAP machine. CPAP, which stands for Continuous Positive Air Pressure. And effectively, what that treatment involves is increasing the air pressure around your airways, so be that your nose and or mouth. Now it can be as just a nose tube, a nasal tube, but in most cases, as I'm aware, it's a full mask that goes over your, I'm doing it, you might hear muffled voice now, I'm doing it with my hand, a full mask over your nose and mouth. And so in that mask, air is pumped in, and then that increases the air pressure at the entrance to your airways, and that keeps your airways inside your body open more often than they would be otherwise for that sport. And it's a really interesting machine that I've got. It's quite high tech because although it looks like it's just a mask and a tube in a small box, it measures a lot of information, records that, sends it by Wi-Fi to the clinicians, or at least the company that is running this, and then they can detect from that a lot of information, such as, for example, how long I've had the machine on for, what pressure the air is at, how many apneas are happening. There is a measurement for an amount of deep sleep, which you need a certain amount of to feel refreshed. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but it is, for me, day on day, I can compare one day to the previous day and it's either better or worse. That's probably the best way of doing it. And I can compare it to how I feel and compared to what that says. So there is some benefit to it. I wouldn't say it's intrinsically absolutely accurate. But yes, so that's basically the machine, and I was prescribed that, and then I had a guy come out to give me that machine last week. I think it was Thursday last week, and the aim is now that I am meant to have this on for at least 4 hours every night, and that would theoretically make me feel more refreshed in the morning and less tired. So a couple of things off that. I always put down my tiredness to be linked to my kidney failure, but I'm now wondering if it's more to do with sleep apnea. And the second thing to be aware of is sleep apnea is a condition that you have to, by law, inform the DVLA about. And that is something I'm going to do. I didn't do it initially because I hadn't actually been diagnosed until about 2 weeks ago. But secondly, I haven't received any paperwork to confirm that. But I've worked out now I don't need that. What I need to do is fill out a form, which I've seen on the DVLA site, and that form gets signed by the consultant, and the form basically is confirmation that I'm being treated for sleep apnea as long as I'm receiving effective treatment that won't affect my ability to drive. And by implication, if I don't fulfill the treatment, the consultant can tell the DVLA, and then they could, I suppose, withdraw my license, which obviously would make my working life intolerable. So I have a big incentive to persevere with this, over and above any feelings of being less tired and more awake. That's certainly a secondary issue, as what I've said. I'm so used to being tired, that although it's not pleasant, I live with it for so long. It's just not norm. But if I can get through life and not feel as tired, that could open up a whole other avenue of activity. So that's what happened on Thursday, and it's now been a few days, and I want to explain a bit about my experience with this. And I'm going to go a little bit small p political because I think it's relevant, but I don't want to make this a political channel. It's not. I'm not interested in people's political opinions, so I'm going to keep it light and just keep it factual, I think. So when I was rang by the consultant, they said that I needed to give them permission that I could share my data with the company providing the treatment. And I asked, is it an NHS company? And he said, no, it's a private company. And so my initial thought was, well, in that case, I do not want to consent to giving my data to them. The bottom line is, there was no choice, because there's no other company that has the contract to provide this treatment. The only treatment there is for this is CPAP machines, and the only company that has the contract for that in my area is a private company. Now, as far as I know, I'm guessing the whole country is similar, but I don't know. There are different authorities, medical authorities around the country, so there may be some that's still in-house in the NHS. So I said I wasn't going to refuse to have treatment effectively, so I then agreed to share my data. But when the guy came from the company to fit the device, I did say to him I was a bit reluctant about this because it's a private company, and I had a chat with him about his perspective of working for a private company, and it kind of changed my mind somewhat from my previous principled stand about this. Now, he said he'd worked initially, his working career was in the military, which had a very, had a very certain way of working, and sort of very kind of how he described it as being. I implied from what he said was it was very kind of regimented and efficient and got things done. He then worked for several years in the health sector for the NHS, and he said he was expecting it to be a similar situation, but in his experience it wasn't as efficient, wasn't as effective, although he did enjoy what he was providing for the patients. So the people side he liked, but the kind of admin side I think he found was not to his liking. And I said, how would you find working for this company? And he explained to me that in his opinion, and I'm only going by his opinion, that the technology was more up to date, the staff were treated better by this company, and that because they had a contract that could be lost, they were committed to providing the service that met the patient's needs. And I just took at face value his experience. He's got a lot more experience of working in healthcare and working for a private company in healthcare. And so he seemed to be, and I said to him specifically, what data do you take of mine and what's it for? And he explained that, and actually I was put at ease because it was very little. Basically it was my contact information, my NHS number, so you can link it to me as a person in the NHS. And that's basically it. Other than the data that the machine collected about my health, my CPAP health. But I thought it was fair enough, bearing in mind I was getting treatment. And his opinion seemed to be that, and I asked him specifically, I said, are you saying to me that this service is provided at a cheaper cost to the NHS than it would be done if it's in-house? And he said, absolutely, it is more efficient and therefore cheaper. So I took at face value what he said. I've got no vested interest in this. I'm a lay person that has a view that's slightly principled, but I took that information. I'm just sharing that as he told me. The point of me saying that is, and my experience of dealing with this company, I have to say, has been very good. It's been excellent. They have made me feel like they had time for me. They've turned up to my house at the time they arranged, telling me beforehand when they were going to be there. They've rung me before to book it. They've rung me after to check that I'm getting on okay with it. The machine itself, to me, seems pretty high tech, and easy to use. It looks obviously brand new. So I really, really am impressed with the quality of the healthcare I've received from this company, and I do compare it to experiences I've had in the NHS, which haven't been quite so good. Not wanting to disparage the NHS staff, because I don't think it's anything to do with them. It's probably more to do with the bureaucracy and the communication. Just maybe be a bit more clear about what I mean about that. My experience of my appointments have been delays, a lack of communication, and when I have communicated something, I've been asked the same questions over and over again. So that's what I'm comparing it to. My quality of care has been absolutely fine. I would say fine to good. I wouldn't say excellent. That's the difference, I think. Anyway, to finish off, I want to tell you about my experience of using the machine. And the guy that came to fit the mask tried one mask on me and it didn't fit, so he got a new mask, tried the second one, and it did fit much better. So he told me how to use the machine. It's very simple, and he told me how to care for the machine. And some of the things he told me to do in terms of the cleaning routine, I will do, and some of them there's just no way I'm going to do them. They're far too onerous, but I will do a version of them that's not quite as onerous. For example, I'm not going to clean my mask daily. I'll do it every 2 or 3 days. Twice a week I think is fine. I'm not doing it every day. It's just not going to be, I just wouldn't, I know myself well enough to know I'm not going to have time or the inclination to do that. Anyway, and then so my first night was Thursday night, and in hindsight, the guy who told me to fit it, he gave me euphemistically the term sort of like, you will need time to get used to this. And I think he knew full well what I was in for that night, but didn't want to put me off. So Thursday night, I don't believe I slept at all. It was a weird sensation, and my mind was racing about the mask and stuff. And I remember specifically at one point I turned over to my side, and at that point the mask, or the air in the mask, started leaking, and that just really got me worried because I thought this was not working, and it was a bit noisy, so I was worried my partner was going to hear it. So I put it on and I did the 4 hours. I think I did 4.5 hours before I took it off. And the next morning I was really tired, and that was Friday. So in Friday's video, when I mentioned I'm tired a bit in the afternoon, I remember going to Morrison's and getting some food and was really tired in my van. But that was the main reason why I was tired. I hadn't hardly slept the night before. So roll on Friday night, and I wasn't going to give up, obviously. I was determined to make this work, and I thought it's bound to get easier over time. I'm bound to get used to it. And the second night was better, much better, and I woke up after about 6 hours with the mask on, 6.5 hours. I woke up about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and at that point I did feel quite refreshed. I took the mask off at that point, went back to sleep, dozed for a bit, and I must say surprisingly I noticed that I did feel, bearing in mind it was 5 o'clock in the morning, I did feel alright. So I'm going to give it some more time yet, but I'm very hopeful that it's going to make a difference to how I feel in the mornings. The final points are obstructive sleep apneas are pretty common in the population. I think a lot of the people that listen to the channel will have it, whether they know it or not. And I think it's something that I'm hoping I can grow out of, as in lose weight. But if I don't, and I do feel better, I'm okay with the treatment as it stands. But you never know. I think that feeling better in the morning might make it easier for me to lose some weight. Might make it easier to sort of live my life without being so tired. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that was an update on that brand new health diagnosis and my treatment. Cheers. Hello YouTube. So it's now 4:43 and I dropped off my second load of the day back at Castle Donington at about 20 to 3, quarter to 3. And then it all went quiet on the CX for half an hour. Initially there was a job I'd bid half an hour prior to that, going from Swallowcote to Norwich. It was unclear to me if it was picking up today or tomorrow or either, and so I put a bid on, and I thought when I do arrive at my drop off I'll then maybe give them a call if it's still available. And it was there for a long time, and then I was looking at other jobs before I made the call, and then so by the time I got around to it, it wasn't any longer available. My bid had been unsuccessful. And so from about 3:15, 3:10, it got a bit busier again, and there was a flurry of jobs that I could do. But by this point I had kind of planned to go and see my daughter in Manchester if I could get a job up there. And so I was kind of constricted as to what I was preferring to bid on. And in the end, a job came up from Derby, from about 8 miles from where I was, 15 minutes drive away. It was a small van job. It was going to Broughton, near Chester. And I thought that'd be a great job for me to do, to get up to the northwest and then go and see my daughter and her boyfriend. So I did that job for cheap, and it was 80 miles loaded, and I bid £60 for a small van job, and I got it without even a phone call. It just put through to me. That's 75p a loaded mile. That's what that's worth, and it just gives me a bit of money to get up to Manchester, eventually to get to Manchester. So Chester to Manchester not very far, and then get myself home tonight afterwards, and and still have made a decent income. And without the £60, that would have been a lot different. I'm going to look for a job when I get to Chester, from there to Manchester. I think it's going to be unlikely that anything will pop up, because I'm not going to be offloaded until at least 6:15. So I think it'll be very quiet then. But you never know. You know, in an ideal world, a £40 job would get me a really nice earning day and closer to where I need to get to tonight. But if I don't get the job, that's fine. I've worked out with my current new pence per mile rate, which I've just filled up my van, so I've got a new pence per mile rate for this week. It's gone down because the fuel price has gone down slightly. So with that new fuel price, with that new pence per mile price, and with my total mileage for today to get all the way to Manchester and back home, I'm going to make, as it stands now, £190 after fuel. So if I get a £40 job, that'll make it £230 after fuel. I'm taking at the moment a little plastic envelope, so it really is a small van job. It's currently an hour and a half for me to get to my drop-off, so about 6:15. So this will probably be my last video of the day, unless I have another job. And so I'll find some suitable way of sharing today's stats as and when I know the end of the day has arisen. Okay, just in case this is the last video I do, let me round this off by saying thank you very much for listening to my video. I hope that you are being successful, however you choose to define that word for yourselves. I will see you again probably on Wednesday afternoon, if not Friday. Farewell, friends.